wanted to talk about how I got into technology, how I made the decision to start going digital. And, just like anybody else, we have different factors that eventually push us over the edge and get us into a position of technology. And it can be pretty scary, and we all have to do it. Basically, my technology story started when I opened my scratch practice back in January of 2000. It was exactly January of 2000. And it had a lot to do with my philosophy on dentistry at the time, even though I was a new dentist. I was very, very conservative. And so I really liked to do partial coverage restorations. And in fact, when I was in dental school at San Antonio, I kind of looked at the lectures and I was thinking, gosh, you got to cut the tooth all the way down to make something that's, better for the tooth. It's always rubbed me wrong. And so when I started my little practice, which was this way back when, look how young I looked back then. I remember I had to grow a goatee just so that I didn't look like Doogie Howser as a young dentist. So that's the reason why I've got my goatee, just so I looked older way back then. But that was the building we started in, and my wife and I, and her sister. She was my assistant. Didn't have a hygienist or anything, but what I did at the very beginning is I knew that we needed to go digital. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but back then in 99, 2000, that range, digital x-rays were just kind of coming on board, but practice management software was around, and the big craze was, are you going digital? And my wife was a dental office manager, and she still had her paper book and the scheduler. In fact, we still have it. It's kind of one of those relics we're never going to get rid of. And so when she and I opened this practice, we made the plunge to go digital, which basically meant we started off with a practice management software. We started with EagleSoft. And before we even had all the finish out done or anything, we had the computers at our house. And so we were practicing on how to enter a patient, how to put a picture in, chart notes, everything, because it wasn't on paper anymore. It was kind of a big hurdle to get around, but we started our practice with some digital technology. I liked it so much that I became one of the beta testers for EagleSoft years ago, and just really liked the process of giving feedback and how things should be. But with my philosophy even back then, I like doing partial coverage. And so my salesperson, my Patterson salesperson, knew that I liked doing partial coverage, and he would come in all the time and go, hey, you need to look at the CEREC thing. You can get it done in one visit, blah, 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 blah. Well, I had a lot of debt. I didn't want to take on more debt. And so I figured out a way to make partial coverage restorations in the office by myself. So I bought what was called the Bell Glass system by Kerr. And for older dentists out there, you remember all the problems with Art Glass and all the other ones. Bell Glass was one of those up-and-coming resin systems. It didn't have quite the problems that Art Glass did, but anyway, I bought the full lab system for it, and I figured out a way to make an onlay in one visit. I would take a physical alginate impression, pour it up in Parkel dye material, and cut it with the razor blades, and then make the piece before the patient left. And I discovered the power of one-visit dentistry by doing that. And although it wasn't very efficient, I didn't have to make it temporary. I didn't have to, have the patient come back, and they loved it, even though it took like 3 or 4 hours for one little onlay. In fact, this right here on the first molar, that's one of the first ones I made, and that's about 18 years later. And so Bell Glass actually worked out really well. The wear rate of Bell Glass isn't as good as the materials we have today, even probably direct materials, but it held up pretty well. It had a weird thing that the base layer of the Bell Glass was actually radiolucent. And so when you look on the x-ray, where my finger is, way over there, you can kind of see underneath it, and then the premolar above it almost looks like there's decay underneath it. There wasn't. It was just that the base layer was radiolucent, so kind of a weird thing with bell glass back then. And then the second molar right here, I ended up doing that in CEREC later. But we loved it. We thought this is a great way to restore teeth. My lab bill wasn't really big because of it, because I was kind of having control over the expenses of that. And we got good results. And so I did this for 4 years before I got into CEREC technology. And all it took was one episode of me running CEREC, and this is red camera days. And in another video, I'm going to go over kind of the history of red camera, blue camera, Omni, and then Prime. But all I had to do was run it one time. I did on I did a little onlay on a friend of mine, Benjamin Nemec, who dentist, good friend of mine. And I was blown away. I had to have it right away. And so I bought in about January, February of 2003, CEREC 3. This was the red camera, and it had just gone to the Windows environment. And so we had the 3D model, but still it was very archaic. And quite frankly, it worked out really well. In fact, it jived with the practice philosophy that I had, because I was trying to save tooth structure to a fault. That, even something like this where we needed to have a lot of powder, the materials were not, there weren't a lot of materials to choose from. We basically had a feldspathic material, we had a composite material, and that was about it, because this was way before Emacs even came out. And, as long as you prepped it right, as long as you bonded it well, you'd have great success. So although these preps look pretty, well, they're conservative, they're unusual for traditional preparers out there, they work. And it was exactly the way I wanted to practice dentistry. And so, when you're coming into your own evolution of technology, whether it's a CT scanner or a chairside milling unit or intraoral scanner, or heck, even getting paper charts and paper schedules, you've got to, there's that one thing that crosses over, the one thing that kind of makes you go, I'm going to do it. I'm not afraid to go on to that other side. And I understand what that's like. It can be very harrowing. And sometimes you just got to take, a leap of faith and do it. And so however you get into your technology, you've got to do it. It's more fun. It's better to be on this side, and really it's the efficiency that makes everything better. So, at some point, I'd love to hear your technology story, and make a comment, send me an email or whatever, and I'd love to hear how you got into CEREC technology.